Good evening, football fans. Chris here with Jagerbombs Fantasy Sports. Hope you had a good Sunday main slate, early slate, afternoon slate, whatever you were playing this afternoon. We're going to talk some Sunday night football. We've got the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to talk some showdown plays for DraftKings. We're going to talk some props and some injuries here. We'll start with that, actually, because just before it came on, it was announced Dalton Schultz will be out tonight for Dallas. That does open up some punt value, which we always like to see. Helps us build our lineups a little bit when we got these sub $500, sub $1,000 plays over on DraftKings. Helps us build our lineup and get our top plays into our captain spot. And being that it's a little bit later of a announcement, maybe we can get a little bit of edge on the field. I doubt there's that much edge, but even if we get 5-10% of the people that don't realize this or use Hendershot, I think we can go ahead and put him in our lineups tonight. Simply put, what I do like here, 2 times in one day, actually 3 if you count the NASCAR show, Dob. It's been a busy day. I'm in a new location, so let me know if you can't hear me. I don't have my regular mic. It's not working in here. I had to come to the bedrooms. I do have some guests over for supper. But if you can't hear me, let me know. But if not, so going back to the tight end thing here, when Schultz was out in week 3, we did see Hendershot have a pretty good game at $200. He had 3 targets, 3 receptions, had 43 yards, 7.3 DK points. That is going to be tons and pretty much all we need from him. That's a really solid floor. It's crushing his $200 salary, but more than anything, just getting that much allows us to go ahead and put our top plays in. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. Philly is a 6-point favorite here at home, 42-point total. Looking at the offenses, we've got Philly is the 5th ranked overall offense, 7th in passing, 5th in rushing. And then we've got Dallas, who's the 17th overall offense. They've been top 10 in rushing, 9th and 17th in passing. Defenses, both they're actually back-to-back ranked, 5th and 6th overall in terms of defense, both really good against the pass. Both, you got 20th and 18th, so their weakness, both of them on defense, of very good defenses, has been the rush here. So we may be able to take advantage of that. We'll talk about that here. Both have top 5 D lines, as you can see. Both have been good against the quarterback, but have allowed some yards and fantasy points to wide receivers. So we'll look at that here in a second as well. So we'll dig into each individual position here. Yeah, I'm going Hendershot myself. We can look at Ferguson a little bit here. In week 3, he had 3 targets. So between the 2 of them, when Schultz was out in week 3, they had 7 targets between them, but it was Hendershot who had 43 yards, caught all 4 of his targets, 3 of his targets, sorry. So they had 6 targets between them. So for me, I mean, you can definitely go either, you take your pick, but for me, Hendershot is the better option here. That's who I'm going to be going with myself. So a quarterback, it's Jalen Hurts for me. That is going to be my top captain. I'm going to go ahead and plug him in here. One of the things that I do like about that is if we go over, slide over and look at the defense versus position here, and we look at Dallas versus the quarterback, while they are 6th in fantasy points against the quarterback, they have allowed, what do we got here? We have the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season, and the 3rd most, actually it's this tied with New England as the 2nd most yards per rush attempt at 6.8. 3rd, tied for 3rd. Tampa Bay and Philadelphia has actually allowed a little bit more in terms of the yards per rush attempt. So I think with how much Hurts rushes the ball, I think we can take advantage of that. It was a little weary. It was kind of tough to build your lineups. You kind of had to go double kicker beforehand if you were playing Hurts as your captain, because he is 17,700, so he's getting up there in price. But with the Hendershot or Ferguson, if that's the way you want to go, I think it makes it a heck of a lot easier to be able to go him, and I'm going to show you as I build my lineup out here what I really like. Cooper Rush is going to be more of a GPP play. I don't think he's going to be able to do much. I think this is a Philly-controlled game here. I think they're going to win and continue on with their winning ways. Double kicker I think is fine. I was on the double kicker a little bit more beforehand when we were talking about no Hendershot value and Schultz was going to be in. I was more on double kicker. I don't think we absolutely need to go there now. So I am going to have one kicker in. I'll talk about which one here in a second. I think Philly scores the touchdowns here today. So I'm going to, obviously we were going to want to pair someone here, and it's going to be expensive. You can go A.J. Brown, but the way I'm going to be building my lineups, looking at the tight end position, first of all, down here with Dallas Goedert. Just a lot of consistency, 60, 82, 26, kind of had a rough game there against Washington, but 72 and 95 yards since on 15 targets, 13 catches on 15 targets. Has been very, very efficient. He's been getting there on fantasy points without getting the touchdowns, while Dallas doesn't give up a lot of Dallas, the team, haven't given up a touchdown to tight ends yet, but if he can get that touchdown, we might even see the ceiling game of 20-plus fantasy points. So that's where I'm going first of all. I also like the upside with Devonta Smith here. He's got double-digit targets in 2 of his last 3, 10 for 11, 8 for 12, 169. He's at 80-plus yards in 3 of his last 4 games. So he's also been very efficient. He's shown us his upside. So I like going with that for a home run play. If you want to go A.J. Brown, you definitely can. It's a little bit different of a build, but that's kind of my core where I'm starting there right now. If you go and throw in Hendershot now, who we talked about, I'm just going to jump back over here. We're going to talk some running backs for a minute. Not as high on the running backs tonight. If anything, I do like Tony Pollard. He is the cheapest of the 3 running backs on DraftKings, and they're all fairly close priced here, but I think Dallas is going to be coming from behind, and kind of what we've seen here early on in the season is that when they do come from behind, it's Pollard that's getting a little bit more involved. Early on in the game, we usually see Zeke, and we'll go break that down here. I'm just going to go Dallas and sort by position here real quick. It's Zeke that's been getting the early run, has been getting most of the volume in terms of the running game. His target share is down considerably, and that's where I like Pollard because I do think they are going to be coming from behind. So I think we can see maybe that 5 to 7 targets for Tony Pollard here. And as you can see, he's been a lot more explosive than Zeke. Zeke's kind of plodding ahead for your 3-4 yards, whereas Pollard's got that bigger upside. So I think he's the guy I'm going to be looking at in kind of the game script that I'm looking at where Dallas is going to be trailing and coming from behind. So I don't mind shoving him in there with Hendershot, and then that kind of puts you right back up in that top range. And CeeDee Lamb's going to be good to go. He didn't practice Friday, but don't let that fool you. Dallas didn't practice Friday, so I'm not really worried about that. He has announced that he's going to be in the game, so not really worried about any injury or anything. He kind of fits 9,800. That just takes all of our salary. So for cash games, that's kind of where I'm looking at. I got the 3 Philly guys that I like. CeeDee Lamb. Now you can change this up if you want. A.J. Brown, I think I'm double stacking Hurts no matter which way I'm going. If you go A.J. Brown, that kind of brings you down to that 6,700. Not really big on Gainwell, but then you could probably go with Pollard, Hendershot, leave some money on the table. This would be more of my GPP build. Secondary build here would be Pollard, Gallup, and Hendershot if you want to go that route, if you want to get A.J. Brown. But me personally, I like going in this scenario, CeeDee Lamb and Devonta Smith. That's kind of where I'm going to be going. I've got no kickers in there as of now. If you take Hendershot out, you think maybe people will be on him and you want to go a little bit different route, I'm fine going Devonta Smith. And then this is where I kind of was before that Schultz news. Dallas hasn't been scoring as many touchdowns in the red zone. So Brett Maher, I talked about him on the earlier show. He's like double-digit attempts, 3+ attempts in 3 straight games. He has made, what do we got here, 10 of 11 over the last 3 weeks. So he's been getting there in double-digit points. They're letting him kick from 50+, so there's no worry there. And again, like I said, I think Philly's going to be scoring touchdowns. There's not going to be as many field goal attempts for Jake Elliott. They've been scoring a lot of touchdowns, and as you can see, Jake Elliott has yet to take over make over 1 field goal per game, which just really limits his upside. So to me personally, I feel that Philly scores touchdowns. Philly wins this game by at least a touchdown, in my opinion, tonight. Dallas isn't going to score as many touchdowns. The Philly defense has been better, in my opinion. So I think stopping them in the red zone is going to lead to Brett Maher probably getting 3 to 4 field goal attempts tonight. So that is my kicker if you want to go that direction. I definitely like that route. You can still get CeeDee Lamb in there. It leaves you with 4,500. This is where you could go double kicker, but like I said, I don't really like that upside for GPP. So Jake Elliott's kind of out of my lineups. I think you could either go Dallas defense here as well. Like they've got big time sack upside as they showed against Washington, turnovers, that sort of thing. So they've got that double-digit point upside in there as well. So if you wanted to go Philly defense, which also correlates with Brett Maher, that they're going to be, maybe stopping him in the red zone I mean, they're not going to get points for that, but they're going to hold them down in terms of score, 3 points versus 7 if they're going to be getting touchdowns. So I think that's a route you can go as well, but I'm definitely not going to be on double kicker now. Like I said, I just don't think Jake Elliott's got enough of upside, especially if you're going Hurts. I mean, in a different game script for sure, but if you're playing Jalen Hurts at quarterback and you're double stacking him, you probably don't want Jake Elliott in there because they kind of go against each other. They're not correlating, because if Elliott is getting 3 to 4 field goal attempts and he ends up getting there in terms of value, that means Hurts isn't getting the touchdowns, and neither is Goddard or Smith. They may get their yards, so the receivers are fine. So that would be more of a, say you like A.J. Brown a lot tonight and you want to go there for your captain, that's a spot maybe where I would start thinking about maybe putting Elliott in, because maybe they're not getting as many touchdowns. Now, the receivers and the running backs can always get there in yards without getting their touchdowns, which we have seen in the past. But to get Hurts in there, he needs the touchdown. So that's just where that correlation comes in terms of those kind of builds. So to answer your question, going back to the Zeke versus Pollard for me, in my main build, I mean, if you're building multiple lineups, I am not. I usually build one lineup. I usually put it in about 70 to 80% double ups, and then some single entry, and maybe like a 3 max or something, kind of keep it small. I don't really go in the big. If I go in the big tournaments, it's going to be like a $1 tournament, because I'm not going to be competing with guys running 20 and 150 lineups with my one lineup. They're going to have my one lineup covered plus more of the correlated lineup. So I don't like going that route. Now, couple things else that stood out to me here. These are on the deep balls. Philly and Dallas have both been really good at holding teams down in terms of the deep ball. This is using NFLsavant.com. But one thing that did stand out to me here when breaking some of these stats down is looking at the outside versus inside. Same thing we kind of looked at with Chris Godwin this morning. With Pittsburgh giving up a lot of yardage to the inside, what we see is on your inside here, Philly and Dallas. Where's Dallas? Dallas has allowed the third fewest yards to inside receivers, while Philly is 10th. Now, if we go to the outside receivers here and kind of, you got your short right, short, deep right, long, left. We got Philly here, but Dallas is all of a sudden stretched out. They're mid-pack. They're ranked 16th in terms of yardage given up to the outside, but a heck of a lot more to the outside than the inside. So that's where A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith come in, over looking at your slot receivers who are, I just need to sort that. Noah Brown runs, I'm just going to grab the percentage of routes that they run in the slot. So we've got Noah Brown runs 50% of his routes. Now, CeeDee Lamb does too, but he moves around a lot more than Noah Brown does. So looking at that. And then we've got Quez Watkins for Philly, who's 79% of his routes in the slot. So really not on him whatsoever. He's going to get a lot of Jordan Lewis, though, which is a good matchup. But again, overall, that's just looking at the matchup versus that one corner. We know that they're probably only facing that one corner. When you look at any wide receiver versus cornerback matchup chart, they're only facing those individual corner matchups maybe 30-40% of the time. So it's more of an overall defense that I look at, and that's where I really turn to NFL Savant versus the wide receiver cornerback matchups. And it did kind of work out there. I think Godwin got up to like 90, 92. So that did work out. So that's kind of the overall team data that I'm looking at versus the individual matchups, because we just don't see like we used to, where there used to be like 10 to 15 different corners that would shadow and play like 90% of the snaps against that one receiver and try and shut them down. It's more of a team defensive approach now, rather than we don't see a lot of that going on anymore. So that's where I'm at. In terms of betting tonight, we've got Phillies up to 6.5 point favorite here, -167. This is over on CoolBet. This is the site that I use. The total's at 43. I am leaning a bit to the under at the moment versus playing the spread. I do like Philly winning here, but I'm just 6.5 is a pretty big number to cover. Now, what I'm looking at is props. So first of all, I do like Jalen Hurts over 235 passing yards, -110. We go and look at his player card here. He's gone over that 235.5 in 4 of his 5 games. I think he's going to get there again tonight. Like I said, I'm double stacking him with 2 pass catchers, so this kind of correlates betting it this way along with my DFS lineups. And then player reception yards. Dallas Goedert over 45.5. I talked about him. Little bit on Devonta Smith. It's going to take a few. I'm more inclined to go with the Dallas Goedert here. So that's two that I like the most. Third one would be Devonta Smith, but that's down on my list. I'm not sure I'm going to be going there yet. In terms of overall receptions, CeeDee Lamb's at 5.5. If we go look at his numbers, that could be like that just because of the possible injuries, but 5.5, he's gone over in 3 of his last 4 games, 7, 8, and 6. He's got 5 last game. I think he had 2 drops in that game. One was a missed target by the quarterback. But overall, Cooper Rush has been pretty good. So if you want to get some plus money there, I think that could work out plus 110. I'm not sure what it is on other sites. I've only got this one up for right now. 4.5 for Goddard. We'll go check him out. So that's pretty decent. He's gone over in 3 of his last 4 as well, looking at that number. So that could correlate as well with the over yardage. And then 4.5, obviously, for A.J. Brown. I think he's gone over in 4 straight, but we'll go double check on that. Yeah, so he was actually under. So he's gone over in 4 or 5 games. He was under last game. It was kind of like a down game for him. So I'm just not really inclined to paying the minus 154 on the over 4.5 for him. I'd rather just play him in DFS if you're going to go there, which, again, like I said, it is definitely viable going ahead and doing that. And then looking at touchdown scorers tonight, very interesting. Jalen Hurts is the leader in anytime touchdowns at minus 102, and that excludes passing. That's got to be rushing or receiving touchdowns. Some numbers that I do like here for first touchdown, Devonta Smith at plus 900, A.J. Brown. I'm kind of looking towards Goddard at plus 1,000, Devonta Smith plus 900. I'll probably get a little bit of that. I think Philly gets in the end zone first tonight. And then anytime touchdown, Dallas Goedert. Probably not going to go there because, like I said, I think he's going to get there in terms of his yardage for fantasy tonight versus the touchdowns. But I think Devonta Smith is someone that I will look to for an anytime touchdown. Plus 170 seems to be a reasonable number there as well. Some kind of long shots for first touchdowns. Quez Watkins plus 2,150 here. Like I said, I'm not so inclined to go down the middle versus Dallas, but he does have a good matchup. That individual matchup in the slot is something that you can look at. I mean, that's a plus 2,150. It's a long shot there. And then not really going to be looking at Hendershot or Ferguson. So that's pretty much it for my long shot. In terms of another anytime touchdown, plus 285 on Michael Gallup, making his third game back now? Yeah, this will be his third game back. He's got a touchdown against Washington. Nothing against the Rams, but 4 for 5. So he's probably going to be up in that 5-6 targets again. 3 to 4 receptions, I think, is fair to say for him. So that touchdown, anytime touchdown, seems like a very reasonable number. Plus 285. I think if he scores this week and then he has touchdowns in 2 of 3 games, I think he's probably going to be upwards of that plus 170, plus 175 number next week in terms of anytime touchdown. So we could be getting a little bit of value there with Michael Gallup. Any more questions going forward, or I'm going to actually build one contrarian lineup here. I've went over my core lineup, so I'm going to go over a contrarian lineup. If Dallas is going to win and keep this game close, I think it's going to be CeeDee Lamb, so I think that could be your contrarian. In terms of my rankings here, he's number 3 in my list of top captains, and then I've got Goddard just below that. So I think if we throw a CeeDee Lamb in there, if we want CeeDee Lamb up there, I don't think we necessarily need to go Cooper Rush. He's just not throwing the ball enough. I don't think we need to go there, but then we can kind of stack him with Hurts. You could go A.J. Brown. You could still double stack that and then just get in a Hendershot. That leaves you 5,300. You could get in Noah Brown, but then you're getting into 3 Dallas pass catchers, and that's going to lead to you're probably going to want the quarterback in that instance. So I'm going to get away from that. You could maybe go Quez Watkins in there as well. Triple stack Jalen Hurts with that CeeDee Lamb captain. If CeeDee Lamb gets maybe 140, 150 yards and just 1 touchdown, and that's the only touchdown that Cooper Rush throws, I think that's fine not having Cooper Rush in that lineup. So I think we could go that route. This could be also a route where you go Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. So you're still double stacking Hurts, but you got Lamb kind of going off as the top guy. Maybe Hurts doesn't get his rushing yards tonight, and he throws. These guys get their yards to get them there in value but Hurts only ends up with, say, 1 to 2 touchdowns, and you don't need him because if he runs for 50 to 80 yards, this is what makes it tough with an elite running quarterback, is if he runs for 50 to 100 yards and gets multiple touchdowns, either throwing or receiving, you're going to need him in your captain. So that's where I'm very heavy on Hurts in the captain. But if that doesn't happen, which you watch any of these primetime games, watch any football, look at the games today, this afternoon, where you had Arizona, Seattle, you had Buffalo, and Kansas City, both with 50-plus totals, both going on the under there. Going contrarian can sometimes really pay off. So you can definitely go that route. But for me, I'm going to go back to my core, is going to be Jalen Hurts as the captain, because I think he does what I talked about Dallas giving up, 6.8 yards per rush to the quarterback, the seventh most rushing yards to quarterbacks. I think he's going to get there he's probably going to rush the ball 8 to 10 times as a floor, which is kind of what his floor has been. The upside has been like 16, 17 times in terms of rushing attempts with 50 to 90 yards, 20 yards here that week. But I think he can kind of get in there. If he gets multiple rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown, you're going to need him because those rushing touchdowns are worth 6, whereas the passing touchdowns are not worth as much. They're only worth 4, I believe. I might be off on that, but I think we want the rushing touchdowns there. The upside is just huge if he's running the ball as a rusher, because you're getting points per 10 yards, every 10 yards versus a point per every 25 yards. So Jalen Hurts is going to be in there for me. And again, you can either go A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You can go A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. You can go Goddard and Devontae Smith. A couple different ways you can go. I'm not completely decided on if I'm going to use which of those two, but I'm going to have 2 of the 3 pass catchers for sure, and I'm going to mix in Hendershot just because it makes it very viable. We don't need much. 2 catches for 20 yards, and that's all I'm really looking for Hendershot or Ferguson, whichever one you go, because then we can get in CeeDee Lamb left with 4,900, and that's where I do like going with Brett Maher here, meaning in terms of correlation, we're going to get the CeeDee Lamb, maybe only 1 touchdown, 100-plus yards, or 80 to 120 yards. They're not going to get a bunch of touchdowns, meaning we're not going to need Cooper Rush in our lineups. And with that happening, that means they're not going to be scoring as many touchdowns, but maybe they're getting a bunch of chances with all the yards that Lamb's going to rack up. And that's where Maher's going to get 3 to 4 attempts at field goals and hopefully get in there for 2-3 field goals made. Even if he can get 4, that would be excellent. So that's kind of where I'm going. This one, if you go with the kicker and you're going A.J. Brown and the kicker, that actually leaves you 1,100 on the table. It's going to be a little bit of differentiation for your lineups, I think, actually, than rather throw in Devontae Smith here and you're left with 8,100 and you go Tony Pollard. Although instead of a kicker, you're getting a much more upside with Tony Pollard than you do with a kicker. Not a whole bunch. I mean, when Maher's getting in there and getting his 3-4 field goals, he's going to be in that 14-point range, and that's kind of what Tony Pollard's done. So there's maybe a little bit more risk with Pollard, actually, and maybe that's the way you want to go in GPPs. Devontae Smith and Pollard actually is a little bit more risky. But I think there's a lot more upside with those two. So, again, A.J. Brown and Maher would be my number one way to go. I think that's the way I'm going to lean now, leaving that 1,100 on the table. Even for cash games, I don't mind leaving 1,100 on the table because I really do like that lineup. I feel A.J. Brown and Maher is a little bit more safe than Devontae Smith and Tony Pollard. All right, so if there's no more questions, I'm going to log off here. I'm going to go finish building this lineup out, and I'm going to tune in and watch the preview of this game, and I will see you guys. Haven't decided on the NHL videos yet, the live videos, but tomorrow looks like we got a pretty big slate, 9-game slate, I think, plus the Monday Night Football show, so I'll be back tomorrow night to talk some Showdown for the Monday Night Football game. So I might do the double show and just do some hockey and then take a little bit of a break before the NFL show. But yeah, I will announce that in chat and on social media, and we will see you guys tomorrow night. Good luck and see you in winning picks.